Okay, so glad to see everybody here, those that are here presently and those that will be watching at another date. And as I said, this is a series. This is the beginning of a new series. I'm going to be talking about some things that the patches have in common, and then I'll give a brief introduction to each patch to motivate subsequent talks in which each patch will get its own talk. So we are talking about the Lifewave patches, which are phototherapy, and all of the patches are patented. They're all proprietary. The CEO is named David Smith, and he is a wonderful inventor. All of the patches have no drugs, no chemicals, and no stimulants. So nothing physically, molecularly enters the body. And that's true of all the patches. Now, it's helpful, I think, when we're talking about an overview of the patches to break them into 3 different groups. And that's sort of follows the evolution of David Schmidt's ability to direct and manage light. So the first patches came out in 2004 to 2005, and they addressed symptoms. And so we had a patch to increase energy, an ice wave, which is a patch to relieve pain. And I'll say more about these individually. I just want to break them into these 3 categories for you. And then David was able to figure out a way to direct the phototherapy, to manage the phototherapy so as to stimulate the production of a particular peptide. And with that discovery, we get a group of patches that he's classified as anti-aging. And there's a whole bunch of these, which, as I say, we'll talk more about individually. And then in 2018, we start a whole new genre, a whole new way of dealing with the phototherapy. And we have in this category 2 patches, X39 and X49, which are classified as age reversal. And they're classified as age reversal because rather than just stimulate a particular peptide, although there are some consequences, they do stimulate particular peptides, but they also change a lot of the genetic switches so that genes that had been turned off as we age get flipped back on so that they will behave as if we are much younger. And so that's the evolution, and it's pretty exciting transition there. Now, I want to talk about interspersed in here a little are models of aging. And so there is an old model of aging, and this is discussed by Frank Schallenberger in a 2009 paper. And to talk about that, we need to introduce mitochondria. So if you look over on the left, we have a little picture of a cell, and it's got a nucleus in the middle, and it's got some other things. But some of these things are organelles called mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the engines of our body. That is inside, here's a little more graphic, more realistic picture of what they actually look like, although highly colored. Inside the mitochondria is where oxygen is consumed and energy packets, which are called ATP, are produced. And these energy packets then are in a form that the body can use for everything it needs to do, and they get shipped around the body to to help us function. So the mitochondria is our engine. And in addition, in the center here, you see, in addition to producing the ATP, they are also responsible for triggering cell death. So that when cells are not functioning properly and they need to be disposed of, it's the mitochondria that signals that process of getting rid of them. And of course, you don't want them to die prematurely. And then they also will take different molecules that need to be disposed of and break them down so that they can be disposed of. So that's the mitochondria. And what the old model of aging said is that, well, first it was observed, excuse me, my voice is a little funny. At first it was observed that as one ages, the mitochondrial function just declines, and it seems to do that in populations everywhere, that the mitochondria just quits functioning along with age. And so it was thought that the mitochondria aging is, mitochondria decaying is what was responsible for aging. So the thesis was that the demise of the mitochondria caused us to get older, or be older, feel older. And so this concept was refuted in that it was established that we, as we age in general, we would become much less energetic, and our energy production would decrease long before the mitochondria decayed at all. So it was discovered that it wasn't the mitochondria that was causing us to feel old, it was something else causing us to feel old, and that was also causing the mitochondria to decay. So Dr. Schallenberger thought that we should focus on energy production in order to maintain longevity. And this is where Lifewave's energy patch came into the picture. So here's a picture of they call it a sleeve, has enough patches for 30 days in it. Little picture of the patches that you put on your body. We're going to talk quite a bit about those in a minute. But what I have next to the sleeves is the statements that the company has established to the point that their lawyers are happy with them putting these claims on their merchandise. So the energy enhancer patch is proven to increase energy and endurance. And so there's lots of things you need energy for, but it will also support your physical fitness routine. It's easy to use and you get fast results. So this was the first patch. And one of the main things I like to point out is that when you're talking about energy production with the patch, you're talking about ATP production. And this is not adrenaline. And most of us, when we think of energy, we think of a coffee. You know, we think of getting the buzz or getting souped up. And the energy patch is not that at all. The energy ATP produced by the energy patch is just having the right things to make you do what you need to do and to feel good doing it. So you can see here in this picture, this is kind of one of the latest little fads, is to find the patches on the award-winning athletes. And this is just a picture of 3 of them. Now, still talking about the energy patch, don't try to look at this picture in detail, just look at the top. You have glucose coming in the top, and it comes into your mitochondria, and a lot of stuff happens. And then out the bottom pops ATP. So the question that we kind of look at is, how does the LifeWave patch make this to happen? Because the patch you're going to put on your body. So it is the body's heat and the body's light going to the patch that is the engine for driving the phototherapy of the patch. The patch is a crystal, and I'll talk about properties of crystals in a minute. But it's also, as a crystal, it is it reflects light, and it reflects it's constructed of micro antenna. So it broadcasts the particular light waves over to the body, and we'll go from there in a minute. But the idea with the energy material is to match the resonant frequency of particular components that are involved in mitochondrial energy production. And so that resonance being transferred from the patch to the body will, like a tuning fork, get the mitochondrial energy to beef itself up and get more precisely tuned, like a radio that's sort of out of sync. It will come back to a more productive frequency. So the second patch was the ice wave patch, and it improves the electrical flow. It improves the flow of electrical impulses through the tissue around the pain site, and this improvement in the flow of electrical signals around the pain site tells the body that, opens it up to healing, and tells the brain that everything's under control. And we'll discuss that in more detail when we discuss the ice wave patch. But I think that there are many, many testimonies now about how it has helped many, many people in pain relief. And I direct you to the LifeWave website for that. So here's a little bit more about the crystals and how they work. We have, thought something was meant, oops. Oops. Okay. There. So the crystals can actually hold and discharge energy. And they act, in that sense, they act as a battery. And they can, and so they have, this slide got a little messed up, it looks like, but they can operate both like a, where the energy that stimulates them comes from heat, as in this candle here, kind of the pyroelectricity, and they can also work by force. And so let's look at this top little picture and assume here that what's the battery here is the crystal, the light patch, and the heat comes off your body and it stimulates the patch. It makes the crystal discharge its energy, and that in turn sends particular light waves back to the body. Now, this picture down here at the bottom is kind of written, more like you'd find in a physics book or something, but just think of it as this crystal instead of a regular battery. And if you have the crystal at rest, you see you have a positive and negative charges lined up at the top and positive and negative charges lined up at the bottom. And nothing is happening. There's no electrical flow going around. There's no force. But if you squeeze it, if you apply any kind of force, the negative charges line up on one side and the positive charges on the other. And now you have an electrical signal. So the crystals are able to work in both of these ways to transmit information back to the body. Now, following this line of energy with respect to the crystals, some of the early work that was done looking at the patches focused on meridians and acupuncture points. That is, the patches were typically placed at an acupuncture point, and then measurements, usually infrared measurements, were taken. I'll show you a picture later that would show the flow of the energy from the crystal up through the body. And so these early papers, 2009, 2010, demonstrated that the patches would improve the flow of energy without the use of needles. So a couple of points there. One is that they were establishing that the patches would, in fact, move energy through the body, and it happened to be by using the meridians and the acupuncture points that they made that, they established that fact. Now, not just the meridians, so they also established that the patches improve the electrical conductivity of the connective tissue. Now, there's a lot of connective tissue in our bodies. It's like almost everything that's, not a nerve or a water. So if you think of, your muscles, your ligaments, your skin tissue. So what I hadn't realized until I started doing this research on the patches was that, in fact, all of our connective tissue in our body transmits electricity. We think of information flow in our body as coming through the nervous system, but in fact, there is electrical exchanges going on through almost virtually everything. So the patches improve this electrical system, and therefore information right through our tissues itself can be passed from the LifeWave patch into whatever part of the body you're trying to get to. Now, we talked about electricity, and I talked a little bit about resonance. And so I wanted to show this slide, because if you talk to a physicist, they consider, this is a wavelength down here going up and down, and the physicist would consider all of these frequencies to be light. And so when we talk about what we can see, you see this is visible light right in the middle. It's just this tiny little range of possible frequencies. And if you go over here to the right, you get frequencies that are toxic to us as ultraviolet rays, X-rays, and gamma rays. and you can see the frequency getting tighter and tighter. And if you go the other way, you get radio waves and other things. The patches are right here at the edge. The light that the patches send back to us are right on the edge of here between the visible light and the infrared light. And that is, in fact, the frequencies that we transmit all the time. So this little image here on the top gives you a little, instead of thinking of electricity like going down a line, one really, when one has an electrical pulse, one really has this whole three-dimensional flow of waves and vibrations that are going with what we might have imagined would be a line. So when you think of the information flowing through your body, it's more like this picture up here on top than, you know, a signal or particle streaming along and trying to get from one place to another. Now, I couldn't resist this because it just happened. The Nobel Prize this year was awarded, physics was awarded to 3 physicists for their insights into the spooky entanglement of particles. And this reference to spooky is a comment given by Albert Einstein in 1947, because this other scientist, Max Born, had come up with this notion of the entanglement of particles, and Albert Einstein was skeptical, and it's since been proven to be, in fact, true. And, you know, I'd heard about this a long, long time ago, but never realized, never imagined that it would be like significant or meaningful to our current lives. And what we find out is that we are really moving into the age in which this phenomena is going to be more and more a part of our lives. And it also has a lot to do with possible communication structures. So what you see here are 2, electrons, are, I guess, actually atoms with the waves around them reflecting the electrons. And when we were in school, you would have seen the electron drawn as a line and going around in a circle. And it really is this, really takes up this whole 3-dimensional space. And the entanglement part says that once you have a pair that's entangled, what happens to one is going to happen to the other. And it doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the world or up in, you know, on a different solar system or how far they are apart. So here, even if they're 1 million years apart, they're going to be behaving the same way. And as I say, we need to start thinking, we don't need to start thinking, but people are starting to think about the actual implications of this in terms of, mostly, I mean, a lot of them are thinking in terms of how to, you know, our computers are built on this notion now, and other things are being built on this notion. But in terms of our bodies, it has, you know, it's just has some very interesting consequences for how you can get a piece of information from one place to another. Because in fact, if things are entangled, then that's instantaneous. So now back to a very old, even older than the first model that I talked about of healing. We have Hippocrates, who was called the father of medicine. And he came up with this concept that likes cure like. And so by similar things, a disease is produced, and through the application of something like it, it is cured. And this is really the philosophy that people use when they think of acupuncture, but it's also, we'll see as we go through this, similar to some of the thoughts about how the patches work. Now, just to go back for a minute to this idea of an electromagnetic current, which we can also call light, as the physicists do. So it's going to travel from the patches around the human body. And we just discussed a few mechanisms, but it's going to go through the skin, the collagen, the meridians, and the Bohang ducts. And the Bohang ducts is another thing I have never heard of before I started doing this research. I'll show you a few pictures of these things in a minute. But first, just sort of keeping the electromagnetic current in mind, we'll have a little image here of what it's like to send the current through the extracellular spaces. So here we have this container, say us, filled with, or maybe your arm or something, filled with a lot of cells. And when your area is well oxygenated, if there's kind of a low frequency pulse coming through, it's going to go through the intercellular spaces, like go around the cells. And if the intensity is higher, it's going to go blasting right through them and not take time to stop. So most of the LifeWave patches work in the they all work in the low frequency area. And in particular, by stimulating area in between the cells, they then signal things to go in and out of the cells and to make the cells do what is desired to be done. Now, when the anti-aging patches came along, say this happened in response to David Schmidt's learning how to tune the patches, the crystals, to increase specific productions of specific peptides, specific molecules. And he selected the peptides to be increased with regard to particular biological functions that were desirable. And I just put two examples here. There's a carnosine patch that increases your production of carnosine. So when we study that patch, we'll learn what carnosine does in the body, and we'll also learn what is known about how the patch does this particular task. And another example then, the silent night patches increases your production of melatonin. And when we talk about that, we will learn about not just sleep, but our whole circadian rhythm and the role that melatonin has in keeping all of our hormones and other things that happen to go up and down with by day and by night. They're different, and all of those activities are tied up with melatonin. And if you want those to happen well, then the melatonin needs to be there for one and work properly for another. So back to the likes cure like model, and thinking of it now as for the human body. This slide is adapted from results in a paper by Dr. Melinda Connor in 2013. And so in her construct, healthy bodies produce oscillations in response to stimuli. So something happens and we vibrate in response. And a healthy body is actually going to be on the verge of chaos at any particular time, so that it has the ability to change when something changes in the environment. We might think that a healthy body is well regulated and much more controlled, but it is it's being in a controlled, chaotic state that is really the healthiest. So disease is produced when the individual gets stuck. and then is not able to respond as needed. So what you need is a little push, a little bit of vibration, the right kind of vibration to loosen up what's stuck. So we have a light frequency reflected into the body, and it's going to be similar to the one that, well, if you're properly matching the product, the LifeWave product, with your symptoms, or then you want it to be, you want what you're weak in to be similar to the frequency you're getting. And that then is going to disrupt the stuck system and return the individual to health eventually. Now, we talked about, some ways of getting around the human body, but we have these kind of larger scope ways as well. We have the nervous system, and my goodness, haven't pictures of the nervous system changed since in the last 50 years. The old images of the nervous system were like electrical telephone pole wires or something. You had things coming from your spinal cord and your brain and going out to your arms. And the current pictures look like this, where you can see the light getting transmitted along them, which are the instructions, and the light will be jumping from one to the next. And it's really quite an active, amazing network, communications network. So then we have the meridians, and some people that have had good experience with acupuncture have no trouble with the meridians as a concept, and certainly the Chinese have relied on them for thousands of years. Those that kind of poo-poo the acupuncture system ignore the fact that these energy going through the meridians can now be measured, as in this picture where this is infrared light, and you can see the dark red is where the energy is flowing more strongly, and it's right along a meridian pathway. So the existence of the meridians and their being highways for energy is really not in doubt for anyone who looks at the literature. What is new, well, not really new, are these Bohan ducts. Actually, they were discovered in 1965, but they were discovered in and are studied by the biophysicists. And as far as I know, really haven't crossed over into the medical literature or medical awareness at all. But you can see these, so there's like this purple strand here. They had to use a specific dye to be able to see it. And the ducts are actually inside the lymph ducts. And there are some people that think that they actually are the ducts that are meridians. And there's a whole team that's working on trying to map one to the other. But from what I've seen, the more they are looking, the more extensive this whole system, this whole network of communication system is, all around all our organs. And if you Google it, it's really quite amazing. Bohan was a physicist in North Korea, which is one reason it took so long for this discovery to get out. And it was taken up by South Korean physicists and also Italians. And one of the people that worked early on the LifeWave research with with David Schmidt was also really, this was like 15 years ago now, or 10 years ago. He really thought this was going to be big stuff in medicine very soon, but things go slowly. Now, you know, I said that information goes through your connective tissue. And so here's a picture of collagen and water. So collagen is this triple strand of molecules, kind of like DNA, is a strand. That is, they're all wrapped up together. And these little lines that you see are actually water molecules that hold it together. So a lot of the structure of our soft tissue is really largely being held together by water. And inside the water, there will be little embedded, sometimes little minerals, zinc or copper, or different things that help give it structure. But it's this combination that's electrically conductive, and it goes through the whole body and even into the cells themselves. There is, this is a little wild. So liquid water. And I won't pretend to understand this because we're going back into our, when they talk about quantum physics, or in this case, quantum molecular machines, this is referring to the spooky physics that I mentioned earlier. And the result is that this water associates with macromolecules and membranes to function as a quantum molecular machine that transforms and transfers energy at a close to 100% efficiency. So so that's just astounding that we have this potential in our bodies to really to have lots of energy. We have to be able to tap into it and to release it. So this is amazing. And then one more structure here are the tubular structures. And that people keep bringing that to my mind recently. This is a picture up here of a muscle, you know, like you're gonna bend your arm or something. And you have these gray, this is a tubule here, gray, like a little duct coming in here and one on the other side. And that's where, if you actually want the muscle to contract or to do something, the electrical signal goes into that tube and causes the muscle to act. So the body's full of these tubular structures, lots in the kidneys and the urethra and the heart. They're all over the place. And they're actually used in addition to transporting this signal, which is probably electrical or electromagnetic, to actually make something happen. They transport and exchange materials between different compartments. So it's important, again, for communication. So now a quick little run through on the different, well, we've talked about a few of the patches, but just to run through a few comments on the others. Alavita is both a patch and associated lotions, and it's designed to have for healthy epithelial tissue. It's marketed as a beauty product. You know, you're going to have nice, beautiful, get rid of your wrinkles and have pretty skin. But to me, looking at a more fundamental health point of view, it protects your connective tissue. That is, it is the tissue around your organs. It is responsible for how well you secrete, absorb, excrete, filtrate, diffuse, and your sensory reception. So your epithelial cells are, you know, they line your blood vessels, they line your stomach, they're huge amounts of them inside you as well as outside you. And here's a picture of a nice, healthy layer. So this is a has potential for helping with many different aspects besides just having a pretty face. And then the YH patches are the glutathione, the carnosine, and the eon. The glutathione is the body's master antioxidant, and that one's great to talk about. I just show you a couple pictures because we hear a lot about oxidative stress and antioxidants, but many people don't know what those are. So here on the left, we have an antioxidant, and you can see it's got a lot of negative charges around it. Here's the nucleus in the middle. And then you have what's called a free radical, and that's the negative charges normally come in pairs, and when for some reason one of those has been ripped away, it's like having your battery in your car where you rip off one of the leads and then you let it bang around inside and just make chaos with anything else electrical that it finds. And that's what's happening to, you know, things in our body that go careening around, ripping off electrons from other molecules and totally making a mess. But if they actually get paired up with an antioxidant, its job is to give these free radicals the extra electrons it needs to neutralize them. And so oxidative stress is where you've got this teeter-totter here, and if you have more free radicals than the antioxidants could handle, then you end up with oxidative damage, which goes to inflammation and tissue injury. So there are a number of the products, the patches, that have antioxidant properties. So we'll come back to this discussion in different contexts as we go on in different talks. The carnosine patch also is an antioxidant, but you see it's been established that it will reduce oxidative stress. But the real important thing, a real important thing about it is that it's a small little tiny molecule and it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So it can help with things that the bigger antioxidants can't. And in particular, it helps with heavy metals, but also with the bioelectrical properties of the organs. Very fine patch. Eon reduces stress, promotes relaxation. That's what's on their label. It was designed to target the queen bee peptide, which is an amazing story. And we will learn more about that when we get to this patch. 3 additional patches: mood, cravings, and sleep. The Nirvana patch enhances your mood and will give you a sustained results. It was actually designed to elevate dopamine and beta endorphins. So we'll learn when we study this patch what those, what dopamine and beta endorphins do to our body and what that means to us. The Silent Night patch I mentioned before is designed to improve melatonin, and what they put on the advertisement for the sleep is that it's been shown to increase the length of sleep and increase the quality of sleep. But this whole role of melatonin in our body is really quite amazing and quite extensive and goes way beyond just, did you get a good night's sleep? The Silent Night patch, I was kind of dumbfounded to find this in the papers in the website. It's the only one I know of that actually appears to be a homeopathic, the crystal made of homeopathy, or however you say the individual homeopathic components. This paper, 2013, by Dr. Melinda Connor, says that the patches have the following homeopathic formulary, which means that it's made of these things. And I actually looked each one up, with respect to its relationship to sleep, and they all have some relationship to making you feel like you might want to take a nap. So, but that's the only patch I know that is directly related to homeopathy in terms of how the patch is constructed. And that may just be that I don't know the other patches as well. The SP6 patch is also unique in that it's the only patch that's named after an acupuncture site. And on a number of talks, I have heard David Schmidt call the meridian, well, they recommend that you put the patch on the inside of the left leg at a particular point, and he describes that as being on a superhighway to the thalamus. Well, the thalamus is deep inside the brain up here, and the place they have you put it is down on your leg. It's interesting that, well, that's interesting. But the hypothalamus is responsible for the control of food intake. And in one study, they were able to show that the physiological status of the hypothalamus improved. They didn't do too much research on it. So their formal advertisement has these mays in it, may help to reduce carvings, may help to reduce appetite. I think, well, I know John tried it and said he lost some weight, and I'm trying to stimulate the hypothalamus of my brain right now, my husband's brain right now. So he and I have been using it recently. And I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to measure what it might actually be doing. But a very interesting patch. And then we get to the two age reversal patches, the X39 and the X49. And the X39 is the first product ever to activate stem cells, for which one could spend, $10,000 for an injection and they wouldn't even be yours. And the X49 aims to activate fibroblasts and endothelial cell growth. So just to blow that up a little bit, the X39 increases a copper peptide called GHK-Cu, and it resets a third of the human genome to a healthy state. Gene expression, just to make that a little more tangible, gene expression refers to how often or when proteins are created from the instructions within your genes. And epigenetic changes affect gene expression to turn genes on and off. So these are terms that are used to describe this resetting of the human genome. So the X39 flips genes to a healthier state, a lot of them. The X49, I believe, also flips genes from what I have read, although I didn't see it stated explicitly, but it stimulates the growth and development of new fibroblasts. I believe that is happening by flipping genes to grow. And fibroblasts are kind of the scaffolding around which your collagen and your muscles and other things are going to be built. So when you have an abundance of fibroblasts, you're going to have an increase in young collagen and elastin. It's going to compete with aloe vera for making your wrinkles go away, but it's going to do a lot to make you healthy and strong. It strengthens the muscles, the vascular walls, the skin, and the hair. So Lifewave products don't treat diseases. They are wellness products. And if you have a illness, you should discuss their use with your doctor. Here is the array of patches that are available. And I will look forward to having any questions and or seeing you same time, same place, first